Hello everyone and welcome to the next part of our review. What the College Board has made clear is that you're going to be tested specifically on AP Prose, which is the second essay question. To me, everything that we've studied this year really kind of prepares you for this moment. You've done this in long form fiction, you have done this in short form poetry. Those two skills are completely applicable. Because what are you going to have to do with that essay? You're going to have a prompt, you need to come up with a thesis, you need to find evidence. Fine, cool. What typically happens in this? So a lot of times with the prose passage, excuse me, they're talking about character and what one character is doing. And what typically happens is that character is not typical. It doesn't fit into its environment. You see, if you had a story where you had a perfect character who fit into its environment perfectly, that character becomes invisible and disappears. Think about it right now in terms of where you are with Brave New World. If Bernard were perfect, we wouldn't talk about him. If Lenina fit in perfectly, there'd be nothing to talk about. If John fit in perfectly, there'd be no reason to have brought him back. So it's those characters that don't fit in, they're the ones that are really the most interesting because they create the dynamics. But then we have to establish who those characters are. What do we know about them? Well, how are those characters revealed? Really three major ways. Their words, their thoughts, their deeds. And it can even be more than this. So it's words, either the ones they say or what people say to them or about them. The thoughts they have or the thoughts other people have about them, and the deeds, both the ones they do and the ones that are done to them. That sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You're just looking for concrete things. So I'm going to get really personal here to help you understand how to do this. So let's take the bald guy dilemma, as I'm going to call it. Okay, let's talk about, you want to talk about why I am a, very aerodynamic human being, why I am a walking light bulb at all times. And you're going to make some really foolish statements to begin. So if you take a look at the first statement that's up here, and it says, Dr. Mascherino shaves his head because he is bald. Well, that's just wrong because it's in reverse. I don't shave my head because I'm bald. It's the second one, Dr. Mascherino is bald because he shaves his head. Now, while that is true, that is factually accurate, who cares? It's the same thing as saying something like, George Washington was the first president of the United States. Well, we know that. I don't need you to tell me that. There's nothing gained there. I need an analysis. Now, if you want to start getting into, well, why is he bald? Why does he shave his head? And you're not going to be able to say, well, because he does. You're going to have to prove it. And that's not as easy as some people might be able to think it is. But there's a trick. So let's get into, characters have several qualities. One quality is social quality. So you look at how they act and how that affects them. So one thing you might say about him is, this is a guy who typically shows a refusal to conform. Well, give me an example of where he shows a refusal to conform. Well, he refuses to be on Instagram, or as he likes to call it, Instantgram. Like, everybody's on Instagram. Why isn't he? He doesn't like it. He just sees it as far too conformist. He doesn't like it, and he wants nothing to do with it. Even if everyone else is doing it, he doesn't care if he feels left out because he does what he wants. Now you're starting to make assertions based on fact. This is a fact. We're not going to argue this one. This is then something you say about it because of it, and that's leading you to your thesis. But it can't be this easy, can it? One piece of evidence to talk about a human quality? No good. What if you wanted to start getting into this statement here? He is disciplined. Well, how do you know that he's disciplined? Well, let's get into other qualities. One is a mental quality. How do you know he's disciplined mentally? Well, he's a very highly educated person. You don't get that far in education without being disciplined. Okay. What about physical qualities? Do we have physical things he does? Well, this is a guy who runs distance races. Again, you don't get to do that without being disciplined. So if we were to merge the two ideas together, what are we finding out? We're finding out that this is someone who probably shaves his head because he refuses to try to grow hair out or wear a wig to try to fit in. He simply embraces what he is, but he's also going to shave it because he believes in the idea of a disciplined look and a disciplined approach. That is character assertion right there. That's development. You took evidence and you made a point. That's what we're looking to do. Now, I want to translate this into something else. So I want to look at one of the AP tasks that we would have looked at together. And I'm very sad that we're not going to. This is one I love doing every year, and I'm really kind of bummed that we can't do it. What we have here is the following selection is the opening of Anne Petry's 1946 novel, The Street. Read the selection carefully and then write an essay analyzing how Petry establishes Ludi Johnson's relationship to the urban setting through the use of such literary devices as imagery, personification, selection of detail, and figurative language. That set of directions is so clear, there's really no way for you to not know what they were asking you to do. Okay, what is Ludi Johnson's relationship to the urban setting through the use of? So who is she? And how does the setting reveal her? And we already know that the setting is an urban setting. Now, you're a New York audience, so when you first read this first sentence, you should know it. And if you didn't, that's okay too. That there was a cold November wind blowing through 116th Street. You continue to read on this, especially talking about 7th and 8th Avenues. This is Uptown Manhattan. This is Harlem. Okay? And especially when Petry's writing this in 1946. So we can already start to make a whole bunch of assertions about socioeconomic status, much like we did when we looked at the Hurston piece. That kind of stuff matters. It really does. So even if I just start to look at the first paragraph here, and if you want, you can stop and you can look at the handout that I sent you, and then we can pick up again, but I'm going to keep going because you can always pause me. Not that you can do that in real life. There was a cold November wind blowing through 116th Street. It rattled the tops of garbage cans, sucked window shades out through the top of opened windows, and set them flapping against the windows. And it drove most people off the street in the block between 7th and 8th Avenues, except for a few hurried pedestrians who bent double in an effort to offer the least possible exposed surface to its violent assault. So notice it asked you for personification. Well, it personifies the wind right away, which is then the agent of the urban environment right here. And so what do you know about the urban environment? I'd look at this word right here, violent. Oh, gee. I also like, there's a word in here Petry uses so well when she talks about most of the people. Right there, you're going to know that Ludi Johnson is not most people. So how does she respond to this urban setting? And let's keep looking at the setting here for a second then. It found every scrap of paper along the street, theater throwaways, announcements of dances and lodge meetings, the heavy waxed paper that loaves of bread had been wrapped in, thinner waxed paper that had enclosed sandwiches, old envelopes, newspaper, fingering its way along the curb. The wind set the bits of paper to dancing high in the air, so that a barrage of paper swirled into the faces of the people on the street. It even took time to rush into doorways and areaways and find chicken bones and pork chop bones and push them along the curb. So this whole paragraph right here, what is it talking about? Well, it talks about something that was really, alluded to in the second sentence, which is garbage cans. It's saying that the environment is filled with garbage. And that's kind of how the people are treated as well. So now you've got this really kind of brutal environment. I'm going to skip ahead here to line 45. Each time she thought she had the sign in focus, the wind pushed it away from her so that she wasn't certain whether it said 3 rooms or 2 rooms. If it was 3, why, she would go back in and ask to see it. But if it said 2, why, there wasn't any point. Even with the wind twisting the sign away from her, she could see that it had been there for a long time, because its original coat of white paint was streaked with rust, where years of rain and snow had finally eaten the paint off down to the metal, and the metal had slowly rusted, making a dark red stain like blood. And so we've got something about here that the wind pushes her away, she keeps going. There's more about that in the paragraph before it, and even the idea that she is so resolute by talking about the fact that she is out for a 3-room apartment and she will not settle for anything less. So what do you know about her? Socially, emotionally, personality-wise, even physically, based on how she reacts and how she reacts to the environment that's there. Okay, I want you to look at the assignment that I've got posted for you in the classroom. You'll see how to do that. Look for those kinds of evidence. Make sure you read the whole thing. Obviously, if there are any questions, just write to me and I'll take care of that. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe.